Friends, my objective of talking to you today is to discuss about another aspect of Covid-19 or other infections which become life-threatening. We all are being told and we all understand that ultimately treatment of any ailment is our own system. What is being talked about immunity, it is basically the body's own defensive mechanism against all possible infections, etc. Important point to understand is that nature has given us the inherent capability to face and fight all type of infections, but we need to prepare ourselves. What is being discussed in terms of vaccine or tika is a method of training our body's immune system to learn how to fight an external infection. But if we go deep into our system, nature has already provided us with a inbuilt mechanism which we willfully, consciously can train to provide us protection and defense against all type of physical, mental, emotional, spiritual problems. This mechanism has two aspects. One is the yogic aspect and second is the medical aspect. But interesting point to note is that both are talking about the same thing, known as the body's autonomous or immune system or yogic nadis for defending against infections. According to yoga, we all have a system defined as Kundalini system or Kundalini instrument made of nadis, chakras and Kundalini energy. Kundalini is the source of life. Kundalini is the original energy with capability to think, feel, act, what we call consciousness, which has been given to us or which had come inside us after inception when we were in the mother's womb. By entering through the fontanel bone and activated our life systems completely. This same system in the medical science is known as an autonomous nervous system comprising left sympathetic, right sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Kundalini as an energy is not yet recognized by science, but science does recognize that we all have a life force which activates and keeps us alive, and after the death it leaves the body and goes somewhere or vanishes. Yoga looks at it slightly differently. Yoga goes back to the origin when nothing existed in the creation. It was all silence, and defined it as Yoga Nidra of Sadashiv, who, when woke up at a specific time, transformed himself into Ardhanareshwar, Shiva and Shakti. And when this Ardhanareshwar broke into two forms, male and female, Shiva and Shakti, the creation started. Science begins from here. Science has noticed, recorded and recognized Big Bang. But science does not say who caused the Big Bang, what was the origin of Big Bang, why Big Bang happened at that particular time only. It is here that we have to go back into yoga or philosophy. Basically, science agrees that energy cannot be destroyed or created. Big Bang was an explosion of energy, and hence it must have existed before the explosion took place and will continue to stay thereafter also. This is what yoga already states. Sadashiv is eternal, omnipresent, omniscient, ever living. Only the form changes. Before origin, it is the state of silence, the Yoga Nidra. And after the Yoga Nidra, it is the stage of creation, transformation of energy into matter and life forms, and evolution at different stages. With this background, what we have inside us is a system of nadis and chakras, which in medical science are defined as left sympathetic, right sympathetic, parasympathetic, and plexuses. A plexus is the crossing of nerves. Medical science looks at two types of nerves: afferent, which takes signal from outside to the brain, and afferent, which takes signal from brain to the body organ. All our reactions, sensations come from the afferents, and all our reactions happen due to the afferent signals. The crossing of these two nerves gives birth to a electromagnetic, but not just electrical and magnetic, but also other forms of energy known as universal conscious energy, of which electromagnetic is one form. Light, sound, heat, gravity are all part of it. Right? These chakras are living systems in our body and control the flow of energy from body into the organs. If we look at our nervous system, the central nervous system has the brain and the spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system has the nerves outside the spinal cord. And within the spinal cord, we have a system of left sympathetic, right sympathetic, and parasympathetic. Three types of nerve systems called as autonomous nervous system. Central nervous system, relates to our one group of activities, which are conscious activities, and our unconscious and subconscious activities are controlled by the autonomous nervous system. Mostly the unconscious activities like digestion, breathing, heart pumping and blood flow, etc., are all autonomous or unconscious activities. These nadis in yogic system are three: Ida, Pingala and Sushumna. Ida is our left sympathetic nervous system and controls the left side of the body and mostly relates to the past and activities which are beyond. Often in Saj Yoga they are called supraconscious activities. Our Pingala Nadi relates to our right sympathetic nervous system, looks at our futuristic thinking and subconscious system, ego system, subconscious system. Sushumna Nadi, which is the third nadi and central between the two, is our parasympathetic nervous system, which tries to balance excessive working of the left or the right systems. When we become too depressed, we think of past, fear, etc., our left becomes overactive. Or vice versa, overactivity of left generates these type of reactions. When we think of future, we are ambitious, always planning for the future, etc., our right side is overactive, and vice versa, hyperactivity of the right side generates these type of thoughts and actions. Parasympathetic is the balanced state, is the state in which body lives in harmony and there is neither excessive left, there is no excessive right. What we need is to strengthen our parasympathetic, activate our parasympathetic, activate our Sushumna activity to fight the infections and overcome problems caused by infections. One important aspect to understand in which science and yoga both are together is vibrations. Science recognizes that every living system generates certain frequencies and radiations. Viruses also have their radiations and vibrations, but cannot survive in high frequency ranges. In yogic system, raising of the consciousness or raising the level of consciousness is basically raising the level of frequencies, wherein the highest frequencies are in when we are spiritually enlightened and can witness working of our Atma or soul. Yoga basically means union of Atma with Paramatma. Paramatma is what we saw in the beginning, or what we discussed in the beginning, Sadashiv. And Atma is a unit of life which is generally defined in yoga as a reflection of Paramatma, which gives identity to a being and is a living system controlling the working of all our conscious, or what is called causal, subtle and physical systems. It is at this level that we can fight all infections and keep our body healthy. By raising our level of consciousness, we activate our higher levels of consciousness and are able to recognize the working of our Atma, which leads us to a stage of yoga, and our body starts radiating this super level conscious energy of high frequency, which not only can destroy all types of infections, but can protect us from all type of harms. Ayurveda also follows the Nadi system. They also check the state of health through 3 nadis, which are made responsible for Vat, Kapha and Pitta. 3 states. These are all related to Ida, Pingala and Sushumna. Therefore, important point in today's discussion is, if we can understand our Kundalini instrument, which is basically the autonomous nervous system, can realize that we have a life force, a unique identity which is known as soul, who gives us the divine powers and can activate our defensive mechanisms against all type of infections. We can fight any infection, whether corona or beyond or before. To activate this system, the system is very simple. God has not made life difficult. There is a system of Kundalini awakening. Basically, the first point to understand is that Kundalini is with us from birth. Atma is also with us from birth. Kundalini and Atma entered our body at the same time with the intention of, one, activating life force and keeping record of our activities, that is Kundalini, and second one, Atma, giving us the identity and fill up with the divine forces. Since these are with us from birth, there is a system of yoga known as Sahaj Yoga. Sahaja. Sah means with us, Ja means Janma, which means it is a system which was born with us, and this is actually the Kundalini instrument. The science of Sahaj Yoga or practice of Sahaj Yoga relates to activating the Kundalini energy, which when passes through the nadis and chakras or nerves and plexuses, fills every organ with the divine energy and start removing all ailments from our body. You can ask a question that why it is dormant, why it requires to be activated. That is a secret of yoga. Basically, we are created with 4 levels of bodies. Physical body, which we all know, including organs, systems, and nervous system, etc. Physical level. But there is a second level, which psychologists know about, the man or mind, subtle senses, like sixth sense, and or the programs behind the senses, and intellect. This subtle system exists only till we are alive, and is activated by another body called causal body or causal elements. Causal body has 3 elements: Chit, subtle life force, and ego. This ego is given to us with some objective. According to yogic science, our body is given to us and retained in its physical state with the help of ego. But hyperactivity or overactivity of ego can cause problems and activate imbalancing activities like hyperactive right system. When child is born, child is in the natural state under the control of the God Almighty and knows what is wrong and what is right. But once the umbilical cord is cut, there is a gap created in the Sushumna, because of which the Kundalini energy finally recedes and settles down in a bone known as sacrum bone, or in yogic language Mooladhara, above the Mooladhara chakra, and needs activation to cross through that gap which is created due to the cutting of the umbilical cord. This can be done by sitting in meditation, praying to Almighty for giving us self-realization, making our Atma active, and giving us the feeling of our Atma. Once we sit in the meditative pose and pray to Almighty, our Kundalini starts rising and we can feel all these as radiations in our hands, in our body, because these nadis and chakras are present throughout the body, in the hands, overhead, in the legs, in the arms, etc. The system which has defined this is known as Sahaj Yoga. This system is probably as old as the creation, because its source is Sadashiva. But in recent times, it has been retold and taught by Her Holiness Mataji Shri Nirmala Devi,